The last PowerPoint in our module, and the rest of the module is going to be all demo, so all hands-on stuff, we're going to talk about pods and deployments. So what is a Kubernetes pod? Well, it's the home for containers. So let's say you have 4 or 5 or 10 or even one container. They live in pods. Now, it holds one or more applications, aka those containers. Pods are ephemeral by nature, so I want you to hone in on this. Because pods are ephemeral, that means like they can pretty much go away whenever. So when we start talking about Kubernetes manifests, we're going to see kinds of deployment, and then we're also going to see kinds of pod as well. Now, pods strictly by themselves without a deployment should be used pretty much for development purposes. You should never use this for production. Now, you should be using deployments, which we're going to talk about. Now, pods are a representation of a process running on any Kubernetes cluster. So it represents that process. And we can see this little graph here, and we can see essentially, you have your cluster, you have your nodes, and then if you look at the node on the left, you can see that that node has pods, and those pods have a container. Now, in terms of the config info from a Kubernetes manifest determines how the container inside of a pod should run. So we did talk a little bit about manifests. We're going to actually do a fully hands-on demo with manifests, but I did want to bring that up, that a manifest determines how the container inside of a pod should run. Just keep that in mind. Next, let's look at deployments themselves. So we can see here from this graph right off the bat that when you look at deployments, they get a little bit more advanced, and they should. This is production grade. Deployments are production grade. So a deployment contains one-to-many pods. So think about this for a second. You have a pod, that pod has containers, and then a deployment contains one-to-many pods. So it pretty much goes, the workflow is deployments, go to the right, pods, go to the right containers. So deployments allow for rolling upgrades and updates. Again, this is why these are production ready and pods are not. Pods, they're ephemeral. They can go away whenever, but deployments can't unless you specify that you do not want that deployment anymore. So you can deploy replica sets, aka more than one of the same app. And this is really interesting. And we can see this on the graph here where we have replica set V1, V2, and V3. So what this means is, let's say you have 3 Nginx applications and you want to be able to, actually, let's go back. Let's say you have one Nginx application and you want to be able to run it 3 times, 4 times, 10 times, because you want it to have high availability. You want it to be up as much as possible. That's what replica sets are. Replica sets is just like, one-to-many, essentially, one-to-many containers or one-to-many pods. Now, you can also roll back to previous deployments, and this is very important. Let's say you upgrade something, you're like, nope, we got to go back. You can easily go back. And then another thing too is you can scale deployments, aka more replicas. So with that, we've kind of went through, a lot of stuff from a theory perspective. So what I want to do is I want to take that theory and I want to put it into practice. So for the rest of the module, we're going to be fully hands-on. So get that keyboard out, crack your fingers, and get ready to type.